Hello, thank you for joining me today. I'm Jan Clothier of Thinking Stamping and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in New Zealand. And today I thought I'd share with you one of the mini cards that I've made using the incredibly useful Cheerful Daisies bundle. I'd made this card in response to a sketch challenge over at the Paper Players and I got quite a lot of comments when I blogged it, so I thought I'd share with you today how I made it. As we go through, if you see anything that I use that you would like to add to your craft stash, please shop with me. If you live in New Zealand, there's a link to my online store in the video description below, and you can also get to it through the social media that are posted on the end card. Okay, so I'm using the Cheerful Daisies bundle from the 2023 to 24 catalogue. It is lovely. It's a lovely bundle. I have to say that I bought it in response to a project I was doing with a friend, not because I particularly really wanted it. However, now that I've got it, I can't imagine that I ever considered not buying it. It's turned out to be endlessly useful and incredibly good for creating lots and lots of different looks. So in this case, I've gone for a sort of a classic, elegant, pared back look. So, what do you need to make it? Well, obviously the Cheerful Daisies bundle, and if you're thinking about buying it, remember that if you buy the dies and the stamps at the same time, they bundle together for a 10% saving. So if you really think about it. If you think you only want the stamps, do it. But if you think you're going to need the dies, buy them both at once. It's a way to make your money stretch a bit. Okay, so what do we need in terms of card? Well, I've chosen to do a thick white card base. So as always for me, it is half of an A4 piece of paper, 21 centimetres that way, scored at 10.5, and I've cut it 14.8 that way. So we'll just give that a burnish and pop it off to the side. Oops, my grid paper wants to wobble about. Now, I have done something slightly different to normal. My normal card front is half a centimetre smaller, so 10 by 14.3. But in this case, I wanted to create that very narrow little mat of soft sea foam. So my measurements are slightly different for that. So the sea foam I have cut at 10.2 by 14.5. So it's 2 millimetres larger than I would normally cut a mat. And then for the white that's going to go on top of it, I have cut that at 9.9 by 14.2. So I'm going to end up with a 3mm border around the edges when I put all that together. Now I've also created exactly the same size for the inside, because on the inside I'm going to have a soft seafoam mat and then a white inside. Now I'll just pop that to the side for now because we're not going to worry about that just at the moment. But I will say I know that a lot of people when they use thick cardstock don't put an insert on the inside. I do, I always do, and I do it for two reasons. The first is pragmatic, which is that if I have stamped and made a beautiful front, I do not want to then stamp something directly onto the card and ruin it. So I want to do it on a separate piece so that I've got a second chance. But the real reason I do it is I think that when you've added weight to the front piece, if you don't add something similar to the inside, I don't think the card sits as well for the recipient. And so I like to have a sort of an equal distribution of weight front and back. So that's why I'm going to put an insert into the front of the card. Okay. Now, what else do we need? Well, it's actually quite light on resources, really. You're going to need 2 little strips of basic white. Now, I just got these out of my scrap box. They were obviously offcuts from something that I'd cut shorter, probably card fronts. They've turned out to be 1.3 millimetres wide. Oh, sorry, 1.3 centimetres wide. That was just sheer chance. As I say, they came out of my scrap box. So if you were cutting them, you could cut them to 1.3 if you were fussy, 1.5 if it's easier. Doesn't really matter as long as they're the same width and they're quite narrow. And then what I've done is I embossed them with the exposed brick 3D embossing folder to give them that sort of old world look. Okay, so you need those. And then you need to have whatever you're going to make with this. So you need a little piece of soft sea foam, because with the dies we are going to cut 2 of these little ones. And by sheer luck, here they are. And I'm going to take this large die, and you can see I've just cut the leafy bit because I just want the leaves from it. So I've cut a pair of leaves from the soft seafoam using that die. The other thing you need is a piece of white so that we can create the daisy. Now I've done that in a slightly odd way because, you know, there are obviously individual daisies that I could have done, but I really like the daisy that's on this die because it gives you the sort of dotty centre that I like the look of. So what I've done is I took a piece of basic white and I cut it so that I cut only the flower and the leaves. And the reason that I cut the leaves as well is because I want these little tiny centres, because I'm going to inlay the white centres into that green leaf. And from this, all I actually want is that. And then the other thing, I need that piece of white, basic white, to be large enough for this die. And this die just cuts a beautiful little textured piece. Okay, so we're going to layer those up nicely when we get going. So first up, I guess we had better perform some surgery on this one. So we don't need that leaf. So he can go over there. We don't need these little bits of the neighbouring flower that we're not going to use. So we'll just nip them off. Okay. Now, before we do the layering up of those, or if you want to remove anything from the centre, like now's a good time to do it. I quite like to leave at least some of the little polleny bits in, so I'm deliberately not going to take them all out. But before we do anything else, I'm going to take my Lemon Lolly ink and my mini blending brush, and I'm just going to give the centre of the flower a bit of colour. How deeply you do it's entirely up to you. If you want a really deep yellow, keep adding ink. If you want it to be subtle, just leave it. And I'm also going to take the centre of this sort of texture piece, and I'm going to do the same thing, just a little bit in the centre. You can do this any colour. I have made cards using this particular combination where I've done the centre yellow but made the petals, given them a touch of pink, and that looks nice too. Right, so when you've done those bits, you can in fact layer them up. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue on the backs of the petals. You don't want so much glue that it will ooze. You know, you want to minimise your oozy glue chance. And in fact, if you're a bit worried that you've got too much glue on, then just get, whoops, losing control of my fingers. Just get your silicone mat and a little sponge and just give them a little dabby, just so that you eliminate the ooze factor. Okay, so we shall line them up. You can tell I've done this a few times because I could line it up precisely. The first time you do it, you spend a bit of time trying to get them lined up right. Okay, so now we've got the daisy ready to use. And before I lose, I'm a bit frightened that I'm going to lose those little insert pieces. So the way I did this, I don't know, I'm sure there are various ways of doing it. I took some tear and tape, just a little finger of tiny little blobby of tear and tape, and then picked up my tweezers. I've got this facing upside down, and then I just dropped in the white bit, and I just popped a bit of that tape on the back. And you don't want to have your piece too big because you do not want the tape to be showing on the right side, which I almost head happening there. Okay. And then we're just going to do the same on the other side. We're going to pick it up from the wrong side, drop it in, and then just a little bit of tear and tape just to hold it in place, because when we attach it to the card, it's going to be a little bit more permanent. But now I feel a bit more relaxed. It's a pretty effect, isn't it, the way you inlay it like that? And it's, but I feel a lot better now that I know I'm not going to lose those minute little pieces. Okay, so it's actually a very quick card to make. So I'm going to lay my embossed pieces on just roughly so I can sort of see how it's going to go, because I want to stamp my sentiment on first, because I would hate to make it all and then find I hadn't left enough room for my sentiment. Now, Cheerful Daisies gives you lots of options. You made my day, oops, a daisy, so sorry, wishing you the brightest birthday, and your friendship means anything. Now, you could use any of them, but, you know, I'm always running out of birthday cards, so I'm going to make mine a birthday card. Because I'm going for a soft effect, I'm actually using basic grey to stamp my sentiment and not black, just because I think it's easy to see, but it's a little bit softer. So in fact, I'm going to just line that up with the grid paper so I can maximise my chances of getting it straight. I won't say it's certain, but it helps. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Count to 10 to give it time to transfer. The ink time to transfer, and there we go. So we've got our sentiment. We know where everything's going to go now. So I can work out just where I'm going to put my verticals. So I know they're too long, doesn't matter, because you can always trim them down when you've got them where you want them. So same thing, I'm going to line up my piece square onto the grid paper, again to maximise my chances of getting this straight. So I'm on that, and I'm on that. Actually, that one's a pretty good size, in fact. And I'll just, because I've used glue, see I had that little bit of wiggle room just to tighten it up. Now, we shall put just a little bit of glue on the back of this one. And now, just I've slipped off my line, so I just want to make sure that I'm pretty straight. Yeah, okay, and now I can just trim off the excess nicely. Okay. So now we shall do the narrow border. When you've got a narrow border, you have to make sure that you've done your cutting pretty accurately, because if you haven't, any wonkiness will show up a lot more on a narrow border. So let's just hope that I did cut that as accurately as I hoped. Okay, and again, got a bit of time to wiggle it straight. Nice, and we will attach that to the card front too, because, well, there's not too much left that can go wrong. We'll see if those are famous last words. But I like to attach, if I'm going to attach a card front like that, I like to do it before I start adding dimension, because I think it's easier to glue the page when the front is still flat. Okay, so same thing, I've got a narrow border and I've got a little bit of time to wiggle it straight if it's a bit wonky. Okay, I think that looks all right. Okay, so there's our base, which looks a bit bland, but now the fun bit, we're going to start adding in our fancies. So we're going to have some of that lovely lacy foliage that we've die cut. And we're going to have our daisy, and then we're going to just tuck that baby in there. So okay, so now that it's on a dimensional and we've whipped off the back, we can pop it, you know, choose your angle. Like I think it looks better slightly angled. And now all we have to do is pop in our lovely little inlaid leaf. Now, pop it in there, go do I like it there, and then I'm just going to press it. Okay, as I said, you could have chosen to have just glued around where the tape was. Right, so we're nearly finished. Final thing, embellishments. Where have they gone on my messy desk? Here they are. I'm going to use these adhesive-backed solid gems because they come in the 3 colours. I think that's copper clay. Not sure whether I think that's boho blue, but this is definitely lemon lolly, which is what I used for the flower centre. So I'm going to just add in one here to start leading the eye down towards the sentiment. So I'm going to have a large one, a middle-sized one, and a baby one, just to highlight that sentiment. Okay, so there you have it. There is my lovely, clean and simple, and hopefully you consider it elegant, Cheerful Daisies birthday card. I will just show you what's on the inside. I won't make the inside now, I'll just show you what I did on this one. All I did was I stamped the largest daisy from the set and some leaves, but really, you know, you could do whatever you wanted on the inside. I always say that to my class people, you know, you experiment all you like on the inside. So anyway, that's it for today. If you've seen anything that I used today and you'd like to add it to your craft collection, please remember, if you live in New Zealand, you can shop with me, and there's a link to my online store in the video description below, and through the end card social media information, which is going to pop up shortly. If you've liked what you've seen and you would like to see more, don't forget to subscribe to me if you haven't already. And I'm always willing to answer questions, so if you have a question about anything that I've done today, you can contact me again through the details in the video description below, or through my blog or my independent Stampin' Up Demonstrator Facebook page. Anyway, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed what I've made, and if you make one, I'd love to see it. So above all else, everyone, happy stamping.